You know, if you think about it, the Supreme Court has a pretty badass name. We ain't just a court, we're the Supreme Court. But under closer examination, that Supreme thing, not so much. I mean, you got 9 people who throw their weight around like they actually have weight, but in reality, they couldn't cut in line at a buffet in a retirement village. You see, the whole idea of a republic depends on, as Benjamin Franklin said, whether or not you can keep it. And that brings me to this. This is Amy Coney Barrett, a Supreme Court justice who was also a religious nut along the lines of The Handmaid's Tale. Trump appointed her to appease these wackos.
And like I said, I don't know anything about Charlie, so I hope somebody puts in the chat or lets me know if this is, what you know about him. But I saw Charlie this morning riding on a horse with Jesus, and Jesus has given him like a horse ranch. He has a ranch. And he has all these animals, and I just feel like Charlie loved horses.
But what Trump wants from the 6 conservatives on the Supreme Court isn't actually a request, but more pro forma, because Trump will do whatever he wants, regardless of what the Supreme Court says. And it's not just me questioning whether Trump will be a dictator, it's also Amy Coney Barrett. In an interview with the New York Times, Barrett was asked about the extent of Trump's power over the government that is defining his second term.
And they say, we don't need him, freedom. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator.
Bannon, Miller, and maybe even Vance are pushing the so-called unitary executive theory that puts Trump above the legislative and judicial branches of government. In other words, a dictator.
And then on Saturday, seemingly out of nowhere, called for the suspension of the Constitution.
According to Barrett, who replaced the late liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it would imply strong presidential power over executive agencies. There have been a lot of debate and some new originalist scholarship debating right now whether indeed it has sound originalist credentials. And here is the point. Trump's going to do whatever he wants. And it all started with the Supreme Court. This is how the New York Times put it. The Supreme Court does not command the power of the purse. It doesn't command the military, and it doesn't have police powers. All it has, or had in a sense, is prestige, public support, and an historic constitutional role. And it's very easy to imagine Trump just ignoring the Supreme Court, like Andrew Jackson's, hey, great ruling, but good luck enforcing it. And then the New York Times bluntly asked, okay, let me try that again. If a president defied the Supreme Court, what could you do? Coney Barrett then admitted that the court's hands would be tied because there is no enforcement mechanism at their disposal. In other words, they can't do shit.
I mean, we are on the edge of a dark precipice where the rule of law doesn't exist, at least at the federal level. And that, I don't think people fully understand that yet.
All right, well, that's not good news. And as kooky as Coney Barrett is, she and Roberts have stood up to Trump on occasion. Conservatives were apoplectic back in March when Barrett voted to reject Trump's plan to freeze nearly $2 billion in foreign aid. The shitstorm over that decision was swift, with one conservative legal commentator describing her on a podcast as a rattled law professor with her head up her ass. Others went on Twitter to describe her as a DEI hire and evil.
The 22nd Amendment says you can only run for office for 2 terms.
True.
You think that that's cut and dry?
Well, that's what the amendment says, right? After FDR had 4 terms, that's what that amendment says.
The anger directed at Barrett, a former appeals court judge and law professor, intensified when the Supreme Court divided 4-4 in a high-profile case questioning whether a Catholic charter school in Oklahoma should be entitled to taxpayer funding. Barrett recused herself, as she should have, from taking part in the case because she had multiple ties to the attorneys representing the school. In private, some of Trump's allies told him that Barrett is weak, and her rulings were not in line with how she presented herself in the interview before Trump nominated her to the bench. So here's my question. If these 6 conservatives saw the danger that Trump presents, why did they give immunity from the very things they feared?
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person, and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
It could, and why? Because he's doing it for personal reasons.
So Amy Coney Barrett has said it out loud. Whoever has the guns wins.
Right after the attack on the Capitol, 41% of white evangelicals said they either somewhat or completely agreed with the statement, if elected leaders will not protect America, the people must do it themselves. even if it requires taking violent actions.
And it isn't just the Supreme Court that should worry.
This is a big win for President Trump because he has been railing against the so-called nationwide injunctions. This is the power of a single judge to block an executive order for the entire country. And this case came up as a result of multiple challenges to his effort to limit birthright citizenship through an executive order. Now, here it appears that the justices are agreeing with Trump and limiting this power that judges have to block a policy for the entire country. Now, on another issue, it does not appear that they have weighed in on whether Trump's effort to limit birthright citizenship is or is not constitutional.
Trump is already testing the waters by indicting James Comey and Letitia James, who simply followed that silly thing called the law. So who's next? Well, someone like Schiff or Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger. But Trump's real prize, the only one that would get him stiff, would be to arrest Obama. He already tweeted this: "All roads lead to Obama. Read truth if you want public military tribunals." And Congress, while the House and Senate think they matter, if somehow they managed to impeach him and then somehow got 67 votes to convict, you think Trump's just going to walk out of the White House with his hands up?
It's the enemy from within.
And none of this is new. Bannon and the 2025 architects have been planning this shit for a while.
I just wanted to say, look, welcome to the end of democracy. We're here to overthrow it completely. We didn't get all the way there on January 6th, but we will endeavor to get rid of it and replace it with this right here. We'll replace it with this right here.
Amen.
So being the huge bummer that I can be, there is this to consider. Putting Six-Pack Pete in charge of the military, it's like asking Kid Rock to teach calculus. So when Hegseth ordered the generals to that retreat to listen to Trump dribble out his dementia, they looked at Trump like the human colonoscopy that he is.
Very important mission. And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military.
So maybe, just maybe, it won't be the legislative or judiciary who stops this madness, but the very men and women Trump has ignored and disparaged.
At the time, it seemed odd. The President of the United States skipping a ceremony to honor Americans killed in the First World War, blaming the weather, even though other officials made it. The Atlantic magazine reports that on that specific visit, Donald Trump told staff, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." Later, he called 1,800 Americans who died in the legendary Battle of Belleau Wood suckers for getting killed.
He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
How ironic is that the military might be our last hope for peace.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
I think the president is definitely f***ing Satan.
Goddamn right. They know how to get to me.
Bloated and fat and disgusting.
Whether the women like it or not.
I kept my underwear on.
Go fuck yourself.
A witch hunt.
Suck my fat one.
You're a nasty person.
They had what? We're a nation that speaks English.
Look, if something like this, that thing's so ugly.
Who you talking to?
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage.
I'm Chip Franklin.